Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're back for another episode of Kenshi. In the last episode, we finally rescued Tengu from the prison camp. Hex managed to successfully sneak in, disguised as a high paladin, where she was able to pull Tengu from his cage, and then just walk right out the front door completely undetected. It wasn't until after we already made it back to the camp that the guards noticed us. But by then it was too late and we were already in a position to fight back and hold our own. We have remained at a stalemate though in this spot for longer than I would have expected. And while the training is good, we can't keep holding out here forever. Something needs to change, whether we actually breach into the city or if we just need to fall back and regather ourselves. But we can't keep up with this for long. If you're enjoying the content though, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and let's get into it. We finally were able to get through a whole day without being attacked by another patrol, and were able to successfully heal up all of our wounds. And as our last few guys were healing up, we noticed that a couple of the Holy Sentinels went outside of the military camp to attack some of the bandits. I'm glad to see the bandits aren't only a problem just for us, but this also provides us with an opportunity. We might be able to catch these Holy Sentinels off guard for an easy kill, and then we can just move forward into the city to continue raiding it. For this to work though, we need to make sure we're out of range of the turrets, or hopefully the turret guards went out to attack the bandits as well. Either way though, this will be our first real attack though in several days, and it's time we started to put a dent in the Holy Nation's forces. Many of our warriors decided to just push into the city on their own, wanting to continue the charge and attack the people on the walls. However, this puts our warriors at great risk. If they get knocked out behind the walls, it'll be very difficult for us to go in there to retrieve them, and if they're captured then they'll just be enslaved. And I don't anticipate we'll be able to get away with the disguise every single time. The guards will likely catch on to us if we keep trying the same trick. So instead of pushing deeper into the city, we decided to pull all of our forces back, trying to get outside of the range of the turrets. If we can remain outside of the range of the turrets, then we can turn this fight back into our favor. If we can pull through this fight relatively unscathed, then we'll definitely push back into the city. We're rather safe than sorry when dealing with slavers. It looks like potentially only one of the high paladins joined in on this fight. That's great for us. If we can take another one down, then that's one less sitting in the camp. As well, we'll also be putting a significant dent into this camp's forces. We've been collecting Holy Nation armor and weapons for probably the last 15 days, since our initial attack on Rebirth. We have a lot of warriors in need of equipment, but every fight gives us plenty of new gear to work with. And as we continue improving our equipment, these fights will start becoming easier. Ideally, if we can work our way through these military camps within a matter of a few days, that would be optimal though, because our biggest roadblock here is just maintaining food for our entire army. Thankfully, medical supplies aren't much of an issue, as every Holy Nation guard has at least one bandage on him. But food has become a constant issue. We're having to hunt as frequently as possible just to sustain our force, and we still have the return journey home that we gotta make sure we have food for. That walk alone will probably take at least 2 days. On top of that, we have a couple of our warriors who have missing limbs now, which is going to slow us down even more. Hopefully though, we can break through this camp soon though. They can't hold out forever, and maybe they'll have a nice food storage that we can take advantage of. This fight's remained very even though. Thankfully, our healers are working overtime to make sure everyone's injuries are taken care of. I think we only have a slight edge though due to our numbers, but as we saw in the previous fights, our number advantage means nothing against those Inquisitors. They'll mow down our entire army. We're losing warriors quickly though in this fight, and while we're technically getting experience from training in this combat, these severe injuries are really starting to put a damper on us. Unfortunately though, it seems we've lost another fight. There were just too many of the paladins, and even with our numbers, we weren't able to deal with it. On top of that, with their addition of the High Paladin, it was just too much for us to handle. Let's hope we don't get enslaved after this fight. Luckily though, there's not many of the Paladins left standing, and they're equally as injured, so they might not be able to take us away. However, just as we thought this fight was completely lost, our warriors start waking up from their injuries, and they immediately jump back into the fight. It's an incredibly desperate strategy. On one hand, it's our only option. If we want to make it through this fight, we've got to fight back, but we're already incredibly injured, and by doing so, it opens us up to taking more damage. And if our healers go down and there's no one left to heal our injuries, then we might just bleed out completely. Especially if the Holy Nation decides to just sit here and guard our camp, then we won't be able to wake up and recover any of our injuries. Trying our best to hold them off, we fight desperately. At this point though, we're severely outnumbered, and every war that comes up is having to deal with multiple High Nation Paladins. I don't know if we'll be able to pull through this one. It appears like they're just sitting here guarding our bodies, and they don't seem like they want to go anywhere. Our only choice is to actually kill them, and that doesn't seem like it's going to be a possibility for us right now. Our healers managed to remain undetected for most of this time though, and they were able to get off a lot of healing, but even then, eventually they got targeted and knocked out. We really are running out of options here. We might have an opportunity now though to save our warriors. Several of the Holy Nation Paladins decided to fall back to the military camp, likely to try to recover from their own wounds. as a lot of them were either crawling or limping at this point. As well, the remaining able-bodied soldiers decided to fall back a little bit, trying to tend to some of the wounds of their fallen companions, which gives us the opportunity to try to tend to our own wounds. We employ everyone as a healer right now, with our priority trying to stop any of the major bleeding. As well, if we can get anybody up into a fighting shape, even if they're not fully rested, they could try to defend our camp the best they can, at least until the rest of our warriors start healing up a little bit. However, there are still remaining a few of the Holy Nation guards watching over our camp, and we need to push the remainder of them out. We also need to quickly gather any of the weapons of the fallen Holy Nation guards, just in case they wake up, they can't be used against us again. But once we pick ourselves up, we immediately go back to healing and try to recover our injuries. After that last attack, it takes us multiple days of healing to get back up into a fighting shape. The paladins left our army in shambles, barely able to hold on. Miraculously, though, we're still alive, so we're able to fight another day. These fights don't feel like they're getting much easier, though. The Holy Nation is definitely one strong army. As we were healing, though, of course, another Holy Nation patrol comes through, and of course, another High Paladin is in the group. We really might need to start thinking about bailing on this siege. This fight is not sustainable. We can't keep fighting like this. We're hardly ever getting a break to actually catch our breath and recover from our injuries. The Holy Nation patrols are relentless and they're constant. I don't think we're fully equipped to actually deal with this. This military camp makes Rebirth look like child's play. We had no issues getting through that, but it also largely probably had to do with the fact that we had a safe camp that we could recover in. Every one of our warriors is fighting, giving their all, as we desperately try to hold off the Holy Nation assault. We had a little more than an evening to actually recover from our wounds. Hopefully that'll be enough, though. Lucky for us, though, this is one of the weaker Holy Nation patrols, largely consisting of the slaves that they've captured from Rebirth. Most of those warriors are malnourished and not the best fighters. And honestly, though, if I was one of those Holy Nation slaves being forced to fight, I would want no part of this mess, and my main concern would just be keeping alive, not actually taking out the enemy troops. Once again, though, this is a pretty close fight, and of course their High Paladin's going to be the last one left standing, and also our toughest opponent to defeat. I'm hoping we're able to pull this one off, at least a little bit better than the last fight. I'm starting to think, though, if I can just get all of our troops at least able to run, then we'll immediately head out of here. We need to regroup with Burntopia. It's been about a month of in-game time since we left, and they still don't fully have a sustainable food source. We've gotten a little bit better, but I don't think it's 100% yet. On top of that, we're going to need to locate where some prosthetic limbs are that we can acquire. Many of our warriors have lost limbs in this war. The worst being is when they lose their legs, because then they're completely out of the fight since we don't have anything to replace it with right now. But we've also lost a lot of arms, which severely limits our fighting strength. And with the state of our warriors right now, things are starting to get worse before they're getting any better. We wrap up this fight, though, when we take out the High Paladin, though, after a long struggle, immediately going back to resting. Our primary goal, though, is just to rest enough to the point where we're able to run, and at that point we're going to try to get out of here. We can't sustain here any longer, and this fight's just too much for us right now. Our warriors are in shambles after a month of combat. All they can do is hope to recover their injuries, and then we gotta get out of here. Let's just hope we can make some good progress healing before the next wave of soldiers come our way. Nighttime comes and we decide to make use of our disguise one last time. Given we've been at a stalemate in this fight for so long, we've never had an opportunity to actually look through their chests. So before we take off, we might as well rifle through their chests at least a little bit to see what they have. Since Hex was able to get through no problem last time, we use her again. Hex went straight for the main guard shack. If they're going to have anything good in this place, it's going to be here. However, this is also the biggest risk. This is where the camp's leadership stays, and currently sleeping are a few Inquisitors as well as some High Paladins. If Hex is caught, this will become a serious issue for us. And before Hex was able to take anything good, she was caught. We probably should use planks for the stealth mission. She's a much better thief and a lot less likely to be caught when stealing anything. But we can't change the fact that Hex is caught at this point, and instead of running back to camp, we try to head out into the desert. Hopefully we can lose the guards before they end up capturing Hex. But as long as we can keep the Inquisitors away from our camp while everyone else is recovering, then we'll be able to make it through this. Hex continues off in the opposite direction of our camp, and seeing that we're near the Foglands, Hex tries to lure the Holy Nation guards into the Foglands. If the stories are true, maybe the Holy Nation guards will get captured and maybe even eaten alive by the Fogmen. But the same risk applies to Hex. If she gets knocked out while running through the fog, then she has a very high chance of being eaten alive by the Fogmen. The rumor is that the Foglands are infested with the Fogmen, and anywhere you go, you might be stormed by their patrols, which are led by their Fog Princes. I guess the rumor has it is that these Fogmen lost their queen, and so they've gone a little bit deranged, and they'll eat anything that they come across. The question is, though, how are they actually sustaining themselves and reproducing without a queen? This is where I'm going to end things off, though, for today. The war against the Holy Nation continues raging on. However, we're basically at our breaking point. Our strategy now will be to fall back at our earliest opportunity. The problem is that we're just struggling to heal up before the next wave of troops come in. If this continues on for much longer, we might need to give up the idea of running out of here and maybe just try to limp out as best we can. Also, what's going to be in store for Hex, though, as she continues luring the guards away? We need to break away somehow and make it back to the rest of our army. That way we can form a plan to get out of here. Will Hex be able to safely make it back to camp, or will she end up eaten alive? Find out in part 25. As well, if you're liking the content, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.